Hey guys, how is everybody doing today? I'll admit that I already tried to film this video once, but I just wasn't really happy with it. I just felt like I was a little too disjointed and unstructured and a little more unorganized than I wanted it to be. And this video will still probably be a little rambly and maybe a little all over the place, but hopefully a little more cohesive than my last attempt. But anyway, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Emily, and we're here to talk about books and reading and bookish things and things related to reading, and I'm really happy you're here. But this might be the start of something a little new maybe on my channel. I'd like to maybe kind of do these chatty videos a little more often, where we just kind of talk about a various topic and I just kind of get to ramble at you and you get to give me your responses and your own thoughts in the comments so we can kind of continue the conversation. But this one in particular has kind of been on my mind for a little while actually, but has kind of, I've been induced to make a video about it because of two recent things. One, I just did the philosophy of reading tag, where one of the first prompts asked what your philosophy of reading was, and I didn't really have a good answer for that. And I guess I'll kind of talk about why in this video. But also Kevin Toll at Kevin Toll Reads, I'll link his channel below. He makes great videos. He just put out a video talking about the booktube effect, talking about the effect that booktube may or may not have on you in creating overwhelm because of all the recommendations, releases, TBRs, booktube events, and how it might create decision fatigue or put pressure on people, and just trying to talk about how all of those things might affect you, whether you're a booktube viewer or someone who posts videos on booktube. And for me, the two of these things have kind of become intertwined a little bit, and I'll try to explain why. Because I can succumb to the booktube effect, but I kind of want to talk about it from a little bit of a different angle from Kevin a little bit, because I'm hoping that maybe a lot of you will relate to where I'm coming from in relation to it as well. So I guess without further ado, we'll kind of start this one off a little bit. And I kind of want to start it off by talking about my reading background, my reading history, because that, for me, that is kind of pivotal to where I am now and why I'm thinking about my reading now the way I am. So I was a voracious reader all throughout my childhood, through middle school and high school, read nearly everything I could get my hands on. And I guess I should say, I don't think that this story is a unique story to people. I think a lot of people have had this experience. So I read tons as a child and through high school, and I still read when I got to college, but it did take a bit of a dip with an increased social life, increased responsibilities, increased course loads and reading for those courses. So that was kind of the first dip in my reading life, but it was still there, and I still actively read in my leisure time. But the real change happened when I went to law school. And when I went there, my reading for pleasure, reading in my leisure time, took a dramatic nosedive, crashed into the cliff. It was essentially no more. And there was just so much reading required for those courses. I was working at a law firm outside of being a full-time student, and There was also a burgeoning social life within the law school community and all of that. So, and I think this is something that happens commonly to people, or at least people of my age. I think college and grad school affected many people this way. And unfortunately that trend continued into the first several years of my career. Just from long hours. I was doing so much reading and writing all throughout my job. And then outside of work, and work, often still came home with you. Still had family obligations and a social life and things of that nature. So my reading life still remained largely absent for a really long time, probably for probably 10-year period, which when I say that out loud just makes me shudder to think about it in those terms, but it's just true. It's what it was essentially from the time I got to law school till a couple years ago. My reading for pleasure was nearly non-existent. I probably read between like 4 and 6 books a year, which I know is, when compared to the average American, is not all that bad. But from where I was, that was dramatic. And really, aside from it being a huge change from what I was used to, it wasn't what I wanted. And it took me a while to kind of come back around to realizing that I missed it, and I wanted to shift around some of my priorities in my non-working life, and frankly in my working life too, but shift around some of those priorities so I could put reading for pleasure and incorporate that back into my life. And I did make the effort to do that a couple years ago, and it has been richly rewarding, and I'm so glad and thankful that I did. It has been one of the best decisions. So I guess maybe from the jump, I'd like to, if you have experienced that, where you read consistently and voraciously as a child, but then in your later schooling or early adult life, it fell off for whatever reason, come back anyway. It's okay. You don't have to stay gone forever. So I just kind of want to put that out there. So now here we are currently. I am a BookTube viewer. I am a BookTube poster of videos, and I love it. It's wonderful. I'm so glad for all of it. But I am dealing with some of what Kevin talks about in experiencing the BookTube effect. I love watching all these recommendation videos, getting recommendations from all of you, watching other people who post videos about genres that I don't typically read as much. I love seeing people's TBRs. I love seeing all the different BookTube events that come up, but it does create a vastness to the amount of things that I want to get to that feels insurmountable. And for me, I think I started to feel this a little bit even before BookTube, which is kind of what I want to talk about, because I think some people can experience this even without BookTube. Because I was starting to feel, when I came back to reading after the lost years or whatever we want to call them, when I would create a list of things I wanted to read soon or in the coming months or whatever, I would start to have this feeling of there are all these things that I should have read by now. I should have already gotten to Wuthering Heights. I should have already finished all of Jane Austen's 6 major novels. I should have already read X. I should have already read Y. And I started to feel like I was never going to be able to make up for all that lost time. And that, it made me want to be very selective in what I did pick to read, because I'm not a person who is going to read 100 books a year. I'm just not. I still have a demanding job. I have family obligations. I have a toddler. Unlike Steve Donahue, I do need to sleep. I like to go to the gym. I like to make my yoga class. I like to spend time outdoors. We go to the lake, and none of that is unique to me. I know every single one of you experience that as well. So that situation is not just me. I know all of y'all deal with the same thing. But because of those things, I'm not going to read 100 books a year. I'm not a particularly slow reader, but I'm not a hugely fast reader either. I'll probably make it through about 50 books, maybe, in a year. And partly that's too because the majority of books I do like to read tend to be longer books. They're not all mammoths over 800 pages, but most of them are 400 to 500 pages or so. And that's not good or bad. It's just, that just happens to be most of the books I tend to gravitate towards. So that further limits me in what I'm going to be able to read in a year, and further makes me selective in what I pick, and therefore also kind of increases the overwhelm a little bit, because I know I have a finite amount of time and books to work with when there are so many out there, and I know I will never be able to get to them all. I know it, and that's fine. I am resigned to that fact, but I think my struggle comes with, I wish I could make up for the years I lost, where I could have gotten to those things, or at least some of them. And I know in reality there's nothing I can do about that, and I just kind of have to accept it and move on. And I will, but I just say that to say that, just to kind of explain that that's a factor in me feeling how I do about TBRs and recommendations, and I think contributes to the overwhelm I feel with the booktube effect. I think for me too, another thing that contributes to that kind of overwhelm a little bit is the fact that I have several different interests and areas in which I want to read, and it makes it really difficult and contributes to the decision fatigue as well about, okay, well, which direction am I going to go for the next book I pick up? And I mean, because it's like, okay, do I go pick another book in my kind of Arthurian retellings list of things I want to explore? Do I want to go pick up the Federalist Papers and start working through those as part of my American reading project? Do I want to pick up The Count of Monte Cristo as a classic that I haven't read, and then I want to keep working through? There's just, and that's just a little sample, but there are so many different areas that I want to delve into that it's hard to know. I haven't really decided how to prioritize them, I guess, which is where my lack of a philosophy when it comes to my reading has come in, and I think hindered me in making those decisions. And really it's I guess I experienced this last year. I think I read somewhere between 45 and 50 books last year, and I loved them. I loved the books I read. They were wonderful. But I felt like I still ended the year a little unsatisfied. Not because of any individual book I read, because I enjoyed them and I feel like I selected them. I didn't pick anything that I wasn't happy reading, but I think I had some kind of overarching, admittedly vague and nebulous kind of goals of things that I wanted to do with my reading that I don't feel like I accomplished. And I think the fact that I left it feeling a little unsatisfied, and I want to fix that. And so I guess here's where I ask for your help. Basically, here's how I ask for your help. How do you all deal with this? How do you all structure your reading projects, and how do you prioritize your different reading projects? Because we all read for different reasons, including me, and your reasons for reading are going to be different than my reasons for reading, are going to be different than my mother's reasons for reading, or my sister's reasons for reading. And I read for entertainment. I read to decompress. I read for pleasure. I read for escapism. But I also read for education and learning. There are historical topics that I want to learn more about or refresh my memory about. There are classics that I want to read. I want to have a better understanding of the Western canon. And all of those things are things I want to do. So I'm only putting them on myself. BookTube is not putting those things on me. Those are things that I want to pursue for myself. So I think I'm just kind of struggling a little bit with how to prioritize all of those different interests and where to go with them, because it's not structured right now. I do not have any kind of structured reading plan. It's all just kind of this spaghetti in my brain, all the noodles going back and forth about what I want to do. So I don't really have a good philosophy of reading, a structured reading plan. And I think that's kind of where I want y'all's input, because I think I understand that I need to do that a little bit more if I'm going to want a feeling of accomplishment in progress I've made in different areas of what I want to read about. But I think I struggle with that because I'm trying to balance gaining that feeling of accomplishment in making progress in reading the Western canon or reading a certain historical fiction series I've wanted to read, or getting a better overall grasp of the Arthurian literature that's available, or reading more about the U.S. legal history in some nonfiction books. I know and I recognize I'm going to need that to be structured in order to make progress in those areas, but I'm trying to balance the need to make progress versus my desire to also still maintain freedom in my reading life as part of my leisure time, because that's still what it is. It's still part of my leisure time. And I think I'm balking at the idea of making it too structured, because the rest of my life is very structured and regimented. And this is kind of the one area where it's a little more loosey-goosey. And I'm just internally struggling with recognizing that I need to make it a little structured, but trying to decide how far to go. with it. So I would love y'all's input on this, because I'm open to suggestion. I'm open to different ideas about how you handle this. Do you have reading projects? How do you tackle them? How do you gauge your progress? How do you not have a TBR at all? Do you just 100% mood reader, just pick up what you feel like whenever you want? Should just being happy with the books I read at the end of the year be enough to be satisfied? I guess maybe that's a good question. I enjoyed all the books I read last year. Shouldn't that be enough to just for me to be satisfied with my reading life? Or is it okay to still feel dissatisfied because I didn't accomplish kind of a goal I thought I would, because I left it too vague and therefore didn't pursue it well enough? I don't know. What do y'all think? This is not meant to be like a pity party or anything like that. Like, the thoughts I'm dealing with, I don't think are unique or individual to me. I think my reading history and the struggle with goal setting and achieving goals when it comes to reading are not abnormal. So I really hope that y'all have dealt with this too, at least in some form or fashion, and can give me some ideas, because I'd love them, and I'd love to kind of start tackling this differently. I'd just love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I appreciate all of y'all being here, and thanks for curling up with me in my chair and having some tea. And I don't know, if you like this, maybe we'll do some more little rambly, chatty videos where we can just kind of talk about these things, and I can just kind of ramble and spill my guts and see what you think about it, and we can keep talking about it in the comments. But yeah, those are my thoughts for today. Thank you, Kevin, for making a great video and sparking a lot of good conversation about all of this. And yeah, happy to have y'all here. See you next time. Bye.